Hello again. We will continue our discussion of software quality with a third large component of quality, processes. A process is a set of interrelated or interacting activities which transforms inputs into outputs. That's a very general definition, applies to software development and most other areas. We can use processes literally everywhere. We have our own personal processes. If we work in teams, we have team software processes. In course labs, we use processes for the labs. And if working in an organization, there are organizational software and other processes. We benefit from good processes, whether we are customers, suppliers, developers, maintainers, or users. There is no sense to reinvent processes each time we start doing a new task. There exist a number of process models and frameworks to select from. Of course, we do not need to use these models and frameworks fully as they are. They should be customized, and in this course we will see what models are available, how to customize them, and how to use them. Today's discussion is the first of this series. We will follow this in the subsequent lessons. But broadly speaking, we have wide area processes, such as quality management, applicable to very many areas. For example, from the ISO 9000 standard family. We have software development life cycles, which are development processes. We have many more specific and quite narrowly oriented processes. This is kind of one level. Then we have process frameworks, which include many different processes. And one of these is ISO IEC 12207. We will speak about it a little bit. Then ISO 20000 series, which relates mainly to processes associated with services. And these standards do not in general include levels for the processes. So we look at the process must include certain steps, but we do not specify what is the level of executing these steps. We may go a step further and try to establish levels. So one organization has a high level of, for example, of development process. The second organization is an intermediate level, and so on. So models with capability and maturity levels are designed to do just this, to provide us with levels which help to understand where we are with our processes. CMMI is one of these models. ISO 15504 family, ISO 23000 family, and some others introduce capability maturity models together with the processes. Now, sometimes people say that process frameworks are too heavyweight. You cannot use them with agile approaches in software development. But this is very often just a misunderstanding, because the process frameworks we have talked about, ISO 12207, CMMI, COBIT is included in this list, and many others. They present many processes, including development, but many others too. So that's why they may be large. They may provide many levels, as we discussed earlier. If we talk about lifecycle models, they mostly concern development. This is one process from the process frameworks. And there is no contradiction between process frameworks and for example, agile methodologies, because the process frameworks, well, most common process frameworks nowadays allow different lifecycle models, including agile models and many others. So we have some kind of recommendation: use the process models as little as possible, but not less. Let's have a look at some process frameworks. The ISO 12207 is organized as an hierarchy of processes, which may be in the earlier version of the standard primary, supporting, and organizational processes. And the primary processes included acquisition, supply, development, operation, maintenance. Each process comprised activities. Activities include tasks. So this is quite an easy to understand hierarchical organization. These were the primary processes in this earlier version of 12207. Similarly, there were supporting processes and organizational processes. This standard has undergone several revisions, several amendments in 2002, 2004. First version was in 1995. The current version is 2008. It includes 43 software and system processes. To my opinion, this is a little bit too much. So I'm looking forward to the version under development, version 2017, which has 2 agreement processes, acquisition and supply, 6 organizational processes, such as the process which deals with lifecycle models, infrastructure management, quality management refers to our course, and some others, 8 technical management processes, such as project planning, risk management, configuration management, quality assurance, and 14 technical processes. System software requirements definition. Remember this difference between systems and software. Architecture definition. In our lab 1, we need to define an architecture. Design definition. Implementation. Remember, lab 2 was about implementation. Verification validation in lab 3. Maintenance in lab 4. A popular leveled model is the Capability Maturity Model Integration, CMMI, developed at Carnegie Mellon University. It includes different versions: CMMI for development, services, acquisition, for people. For us, perhaps CMMI for development and for acquisition are more interesting. has two views, continuous and staged view. In the continuous view, there are capability levels: incomplete, performed, managed, and defined. And in the stage view, there are maturity levels: initial, managed, defined, quantitatively managed, and optimizing. We will return back to CMMI in a few weeks. Meanwhile, let's just have in mind that besides the ISO 12207, which has no levels, or at least no widely recognized levels, there are models with different levels, so that we can evaluate the level of the process. If we want to remember the different viewpoints to software quality, we might just remember a simple sentence. We want to do that. This gives us different views: stakeholder view, this is we; needs, goals, requirements, this is what we want; processes, this is what we do; and that is of course product and the results. So that's an easy to use tool to remember different aspects of quality. We have not discussed too much the stakeholders view, but it is very important. In the forthcoming lessons we will discuss business goals and the other things. So these were process frameworks. Process frameworks include many processes, and one of these processes is software development, and software lifecycle models mostly concern software development. Many people know well different models, and let's have a look. They can be easily found on internet, so let's have a look on some models. One of the first models was so-called waterfall. So from the world as it is, we proceed to analysis of what we need. We try to develop the picture or model of what we need to do, this design. We try to implement and verify this picture. This is implementation testing. Then we have to deploy this result into the world, and now we have the world together with this new software. In this picture, it's good to see two main aspects of quality, important aspects of quality. This is verification. We verify a product against the earlier phase, so we can verify implementation with respect to testing, design. We can verify design with respect to analysis, and so on. If we put main stress to verification, we and our customers may be in great troubles. A lot of examples exist where the customer didn't understand the analysis, signed the analysis document, and now the final result is something the customer doesn't like at all. So to deal with this, we have the term of validation. Validation, which asks whether this world with software that we have, whether this conforms to our initial needs. We can modify waterfall in many ways. For example, if we join the endpoints of waterfall, we get an iterative model. We start with the world, proceed with analysis, design, implementation, deployment, again design the new version, update the needs, requirements, and so on and so on. So we'll get the same kind of model, but now it's much more close to what we do in real life. If we connect each stage of the waterfall model with the respective verification and validation activities, we get V model, where we start from system requirements, proceed with software requirements, then I have high-level design, detailed design, implementation, and for all these stages we have verification, validation activities, unit testing for detailed design, high-level design for integration testing for high-level design, validation testing for requirements, and system testing for system requirements. We can go from each phase to the opposite and back. And this gives us, for example, a very good idea of how to improve our requirements even before we have done any implementation. We can ask whether our requirements are testable, for example, whether this can be based, whether they can be a basis for software validation testing, and if not, we should improve these requirements. So this is an example of V model. Popular agile models include the Scrum process, more kind of not so much software oriented. We can use this process in very many areas, very useful in our private lives, organizations, wherever we have a backlog for our products. We select the most important product from this backlog. We do it in sprints, short sprints, and we get immediate working increments of the software. And when the selected product is ready for deployment, we deploy it and select another product from the product backlog. We will return to the Scrum process in the forthcoming lessons. Or an example of a agile software development lifecycle is test first development, when we first develop tests, then write some code, then check if the tests fail, then improve the code. If the tests succeed, then we refactor the code as the code base grows and as the number of tests becomes larger and larger until the product is delivered. Returning back to this question of relationship between lifecycle models and ISO 12207, many different lifecycle models or many different development methods can be used with process frameworks. For example, with ISO 12207, we could use agile, evolutionary, incremental, waterfall, and these lifecycle models can be used as they are, or they can be combined to create another lifecycle model. You saw that for the waterfall we can have different versions or different representations of the waterfall. The same for many agile methods. So if they are somehow understood and used and can be described, they can be used with process frameworks as well. There can be different views about how development and quality management are to be integrated. When the software development just had its first experiences quite a long time ago, there was just development. Then there started to be accidents related to software development, and we had verification, testing, validation, we had development, we had quality management, and there was some common part of development and quality management, and this was just this verification, testing, validation. So this is quite a widely used model for integrating development and quality management. In this course, we more refer to development and quality management integrated. So all kinds of verification, testing, validation, other quality management activities are included in development. They are done simultaneously. There exists, and this is the course. This is the approach taken in this course. So this is the approach for this course, or a little bit also the previous one. There exists also another viewpoint, kind of development is quality management. So we don't develop, we manage quality from car industry. This is, of course, a very good approach, but sometimes it may be misleading, so we will not stick to this. An example of a software process different from development is acquisition. We need this in the first lab. So it is process of obtaining a system, product, or service. It starts with preparation for acquisition. We make plan, we clarify our needs, we make a list of requirements, and so on. Then we advertise this, our call for proposals with our selected proposals or companies. We select our best supplier, we make a contract, we monitor the development of the project, we accept. Well, definition of acceptance includes also non-acceptance. So we try to accept because we want to have it. If we wouldn't have wanted it in the first place, we would have not initiated this acquisition process. So we need to accept, we want to accept, but it's not always possible. Different solutions are available here. Finally, we close this process, and of course, nothing is permanent. We need to have another acquisition. So we start again, preparation for the new acquisition process. Needs on the lifecycle model depends on the situation. The different organizations may have different needs for process and lifecycle models, different complexity of models, different volumes, and so on. If we have insufficient processes, we may do inefficient work. It may increase work stress, and so on. Of course, too strict processes are also not very useful. They may, for example, suppress creativity and efficiency. So use as little as possible, but not less. And usage of processes may be less or more formal depending on situation. We might say that we always have some processes, but they are not always unified, they are not always formalized, they are not always understood people do something and they do not see that what they do is actually a part of process. And if they would understand this process better, they would perhaps do much better. We might think, based on this previous discussion, what are the pluses, minuses of the models? What is the best lifecycle model? When these models are needed, when they are not needed? We might ask if there is a need for processes in large telecom, in bank, in startup, in software development company, chemistry manufacturer, public sector organization, in a port, power plant, prison, and so on. Who might be interested in these processes, in these organizations, and which processes may be most needed in these organizations? Finally, to tie together products, services, quality, requirements, and processes, let's have a look at service level agreements, or SLA, which is a documented agreement between the service provider and customer that identifies services and service targets. If we discussed the requirements in the previous video, then we might identify that service level agreement incorporates non-functional requirements and does so from a business perspective. So a more kind of validation perspective, what the business needs really from this service. Which services, how is this service to be delivered? As a first summary, it's better if customer, supplier, and others have agreed on how the work is done. So they need a common understanding of what processes are involved, how they are organized. No sense to reinvent the processes. In the requirements video, we discussed that there exist many requirement models. Let's not reinvent, let's use. So let's select useful processes from process frameworks, or let's select phases and steps from common software development life cycles and customize them. And software development is one of many processes in process frameworks and can be used with many frameworks. We have a number of software development life cycles available. For acquisition, we have well-defined steps. Let's use them. Let's not, of course, let's adjust these well-defined steps to practices of our organization. So this can be a checklist for the acquisition, just not to forget anything. And for service level agreements, we will discuss more on service level agreements in the forthcoming lessons. But let's remember that it provides a link between services, products, requirements, and quality. The key points to know: software process framework examples, software development lifecycle model examples, how these relate, acquisition process, service level agreements. Additional reading: there are a lot of materials for this part. For this course, materials are available on Moodle. The course is Software Quality, Tarkvara Kvaliteet, and alternate download is on Tepani.ee. So many materials are there. We discuss all these things on lectures, so see you and bye.